Hello! So at the end of the last video, I thought that the leveling up of Arlecchino was going to be a bit annoying, but to be honest, it wasn't that bad. You can unlock the boss for her materials relatively easily. It's not super long to get to that point. What I didn't expect to be annoying was the leveling of her weapon actually, and if it wasn't for the help of my friends, I would still be farming for it. So big thanks to Steph, KJ and Dansiv for their help, but also for Nej, a person I met while trying to get those mats, and that was insanely helpful. So after maxing both the cacta and the weapon, I ran straight to the abyss to test her out, and I wanted to share with you my first time reaction to her performance with talent 666, her signature weapon, and a cracked gladiator set that I will show you in a bit. Oh god. Oh my... What? Okay, I'm not overhyping her, but what the f was that? And you go full auto. Oh my god. Dude, what? Dude. Okay, let's do this. We go to Yelan. We do this. We do this. We get this and one. Bro. What is this character? So yeah, the first impression was crazy good. And after that, I played her for 2 days with different teams and different weapons that I will be showing in this video. Don't hesitate to use the YouTube chapter functionality to go straight to the part that interests you. But a big disclaimer before anything, this is not supposed to be a guide. I'm not going to explain in details her rotations or how to build her. I think there's plenty of excellent guide makers out there. And I'll leave some links in the description if you're not sure how to build this unit. This video is meant more like an overall impression and my first thoughts on Arlecchino. So yeah, let's get right into it with the different teams I tested. But before that, let me show you the build I used for most of these teams. So my Arlecchino ended up being rocking these stats. She's at 88.5 crit rate with 213.5 crit damage. She has 107 elemental mastery. She has a little bit of energy recharge, but in most of my gameplay, I rarely used her ult. Yeah, she has no pyro damage bonus because she's on a attack percent goblet. But I'll show you that in a second. She's on her signature weapon. She's on constellation 0 and talent 866 throughout all the testing. For the artifact, she has my best flower on the account and my best piece, period. She has this plume, these sands, this goblet, and a crit damage hat. So the first team I tried was the Vape team with both the Kazuha and the Sucrose versions. The setup to double swirl with Kazuha is very simple and the team performed super well. In the first chamber of the current abyss, having the grouping from Kazuha was super useful, and as I will later talk about in the pros of Arlecchino, the fact that you can swap to Kazuha, for example, to reapply VV debuffs and keep your Pyro and Fusion was extremely satisfying. I also tested the Sucrose version of the Vape team and it was very impressive. Sucrose gives a lot of buffs thanks to her boosting the EM of the team and also providing an attack buff to Arlecchino thanks to the TDDS, the 3-star catalyst. Though in the scenario of the first chamber of the current abyss against the Fatui operatives, Sucrose was showing her limits in terms of grouping, and my clear times were way better with Kazuha despite doing less damage. I feel like these two teams are going to be the most popular in terms of damage, performance. They are the most flashy, and yeah, definitely the highest damage I reached throughout my testing. But they have one big problem, and it's the lack of defensive utility. So sure, you can get away with no shields or resistance to interruption in a lot of content in Genshin, but against certain types of aggressive enemies, I feel like they are mandatory for the vast majority of players. So I tried two variants of Vape Teams with defensive utility. One with Zhongli, where basically he replaces Kazuha Sucrose here, something like this. And yeah, I expect basically this team to be the most popular Arlecchino team in the Vape archetype. And you do lose a big chunk of damage going for the CEO of GEO, but you gain a lot of comfort, and the damage is good enough to still clear in very respectable times. The other type of defensive utility I tried was introducing Qingxiu instead of Zhongli. So you basically play a double Hydro with a double Pyro. And this team was also very satisfying to play, and despite dying a few times against Coppelia, for example, I ended up getting better at running this team and found myself clearing a boss that I thought would require having a shield. So Qingxiu defensive utility are huge in this team, and yeah, very, very fun to play. The second type of teams I tested was the Overload teams, and I tested two types of teams. I tested one with basically Fischl, Kazuha, Arlecchino, and Bennett, and I tested also Beidou. So with Fischl, everything ran really smoothly. I really like this team actually. You can do double sword quite easily, and yeah, it performed pretty well. Actually, it performed better than my Vape team with Zhongli, for example. And I enjoyed it. It's simple to play, it's effective, it does a lot of damage. Yeah, you cannot go wrong with this. The problem I have though is with a unit like Beidou, and I hope someone can correct me or, I don't know, enlighten me, because I don't see it. I just don't see it. Maybe it is a character that you could run with Chevreuse instead of Bennett, for example, or Chevreuse instead of Fischl, but unfortunately, as you guys know, and I said it in the last video, I don't have a Chevreuse, which limits my testing on these types of teams heavily, and hopefully Chevreuse is on a Cloran team. But yeah, to go back to Beidou, what I don't understand is that Beidou is a very effective character in AoE, but Overload in AoE is extremely annoying to play. You're throwing enemies everywhere and you're running after them and so on. So Beidou playing like in Taser teams goes super well. And don't get me wrong, I have my Beidou leveled up. She's even crowned on her ult. It's a character I used to play a lot in Taser teams, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't see it. I tried this. In terms of energy, it's terrible. Perfect pairing on Beidou is super annoying because you have strict timing sometimes because of Arlecchino and so on. So I didn't have footage on this because my runs were just terrible, and I didn't enjoy playing this. And if anyone can like suggest like maybe a better team or have better runs with Beidou, please feel free to comment and yeah, enlighten me please, but I don't see it. I don't see it. In my opinion, Overload is really effective in solo target, big boss type of content, and by that alone, having Beidou, which performs really bad against like solo enemies, doesn't make too much sense for me if it's just to bring a small shield that is not gonna do that much for Arlecchino. So I just don't see it, guys. Third type of team I tried to play was the melt teams, and I started by trying a team like this, something that resembled this. So I was trying a melt team while trying to decrease the cryo and the pyro resistance of enemies with Kazuha, and this team is just not it. You have a double circle impact, which is already like very, very annoying with only Bennett. But when you have to have the Rosaria ult also in the Bennett ult, and the enemies has to stay there and not moving, and also the double swirl, the uptime is terrible. So I don't recommend this team. Don't play this. Don't go through the hassle of playing this. It's not good. The uptime is not good. It's a lot of complexity for no reason. So I moved from this to actually double cryo, double pyro. So I replaced Kazuha with Kea. And my Kea is not that invested, but it's not that bad. He's still at talent 8-8. And yeah, he has decent artifacts, decent builds. So yeah, I played this team, I ran it in Abyss, and unfortunately my main problem is that in the current Abyss, Cryo and Pyro are not doing that well together. For example, in the first chamber you have an Abyss Mage, and good luck breaking the shield of the Abyss Mage with these units. Later on in the second chamber, first half, you have the Pyro Spectres. And yeah, so you see, like, there's a lot of annoying things for this type of teams to perform well in this current Abyss, and I'm looking forward to the next one to try this particular team. I still did try it, and yeah, it ended up being fine. Not the best, but not the most impressive, definitely. But yeah, I feel like we lack like a key component here, like a proper cryo applicator of field for Arlecchino. But I don't know. It's something that we'll have to see in the future. Last type of team I tried was the Mono Pyro team with this specific team. And as you can see, yeah, it's Shangling again. She's back, our Lord and Savior. But yeah, in this team, I don't know like what to say about this, because it's pretty comfy, it's straightforward, it's not very complicated to play. But in my opinion, it's a bit boring. So yeah, not the biggest fan of Mono Pyro, but it still works, and you can. If in case you need a shield, for example, or more defensive utility, you can replace Kazuha with Thoma, for example, and it works really well. It does the job. It can be countered against certain enemies in certain floors of Abyss or whatever, but yeah, it's pretty brain dead to play. Not a lot of energy issue thanks to all the pyros and all of that, but yeah. Nothing much to add, actually. I didn't do a lot of runs with this, but the few runs I played were very convincing, and the damage was there. Before going to the weapon testing section, I also tested a double Geo team with Yunjin and Zhongli, and it wasn't the best. It wasn't super bad either. It was alright. It works, it clears, but not a team that left me with like a super good impression either. A team that actually I noticed was like the Hyper team, the Hyper Arlecchino team, something like this. And this surprisingly was really, really good. Like, not to the levels of a Vape team, but it was very good, and it was clearing with big damage, comfiness, defensive utility, like name it. It was there, and yeah, definitely something you could try. So for this weapon testing, I generally struggle to find a proper test subject because everything dies so quick in the overworld. So I ended up picking the Jade Plume Terrashroom in the second half of the first chamber of floor 12. But this enemy has a lot of problems, and I want you to not really focus that much on the clear times. There's margin of errors, there's enemy RNG, if he goes or not in the Bennett circle, but also there's the fact that he's infused with Dendro, and his attack patterns may make you lose a lot of vape hits and so on. I even took away the Millilith set effect from Zhongli, and I put him on triple HP just to lower the RNG if the pillars hit the Jade Plume or not and gives the attack buff. So yeah, it's not perfect, but that's all I got. And to lower the RNG a bit, I did 3 runs with each weapon and I picked the best run. I also got the best build possible for each weapon by using the Genshin optimizer that suggested the best builds every time. Yeah, I generally hesitated a lot about including the timings, but hey, I did all these runs, why not include that info? But please take it with a giant grain of salt and watch this part more as like what the weapon you are curious about performs and how it performs on its own, and not really on how it does against the other weapons, if that makes sense. Once again, remember that weapon rankings depend on the assumptions, the situation you are playing in. For example, Dragon Bane EM is useless in mono Pyro teams, for example. So yeah, enough yapping. I hope you guys get the message and I'll leave you with the weapon showcase. Let's go. And there you have it for the weapon damage testing. What caught my eye during these runs is how well the White Tassel performed. It's a 3-star weapon that you get for free by exploring Leeway's related regions, and it really impressed me. I will be linking the details of all the runs in the description for those who are interested. But as I said, don't focus too much on the clear times. It's not the best methodology to get a clear idea on how the weapon performs, especially since I have weapons that have refinement like Skyward Spine R2, or don't have enough refinements like the Dragon's Bane, that is R4. But yeah, if you really want to see which weapon does the best in your account, either look into some calcs made by theory crafters or simply use the Genshin optimizer. One thing I want to note though is that if you care about pure performance and don't really care about aesthetics, I don't think going for her signature weapon is a wise thing to do. It's overall 15% damage difference compared to weapons like Jade Wingspear or Sino's weapon in Vape scenarios, or a bit more in other scenarios like Overload. But is it really worth potentially 200 wishes? I generally don't think so. This is especially the case if you don't have Line, because this banner is not really good. And also because the weapon itself is not versatile and it will not benefit your account that much. So yeah, be careful with that. So before ending the video, I thought I would list some of the pros and cons that Arlecchino has and that I noticed throughout the testing. Let's start with the cons first. The first thing that comes to my mind is the auto-targeting actually. The auto-targeting goes crazy, and sometimes you're about to finish an enemy and she just randomly decides to do a 180 and just start targeting another enemy that is super far from her. So yeah, that can be super frustrating, and I know that the Genshin community been asking for a lock button for years now. I remember this from the Yoimiya days actually. So yeah, Hoyo was probably too busy doing something else, I guess. Yeah, the second con is that the more I played her, the more she felt glued to Bennett if you want to extract the maximum damage out of her. And this is especially the case on my account since I don't have a Chevreuse in the archetype of Overload. So yeah, the more I played, the more bad it felt, especially since when they showcased the character and they showcased the kit, I was like, oh, she doesn't need a healer. That's perfect. I'm going to be able to play her without... No. You will be, quote-unquote, forced to play Bennett in many of her teams, and that means that you'll have to play Circle Impact, which against a lot of content can be super frustrating. And the last thing that I noticed, obviously, it's her requiring a certain form of defensive utility, whether it's a shield or a resistance to interruption. But yeah, for the vast majority of players, they will be running her with that, and which means that her damage potential drops significantly, but not to the point where she's not doing damage at all and she feels underwhelming. She does so much damage that even with the defensive utility, she still clears in quote-unquote normal standards. So yeah, but it's a con that definitely had to be talked about. Regarding the pros, the first thing that comes to my mind is that she does scary damage for C0 unit, and the fact that she front loads a lot of damage makes her obviously look better than she really is, but in time attack content like Spiral Abyss, that is a very useful thing to have. Second is that she is relatively easy to play. I remember when Hoyoverse detailed her kit, I thought it was complex and convoluted, but at the end of the day, it's very simple. You apply the mark, you swap to your supports for 5 seconds, you go back to her, charge attack, and then you start spamming normal attacks. It's very straightforward. The thing that I really liked about her was her flexibility regarding swapping. She doesn't lose her Pyro infusion while doing that, which is a huge pro in my opinion. So, for example, you can go back to Kazuha for grouping and to reapply VV debuffs, or in the situations where your other characters in the team don't have their ultimates, or before the enemy dies or next chamber, you can switch back to them, funnel some particles real quick, and go back to her, and she will just finish off the enemy without having a massive damage drop. Other obvious advantage that she offers is that she is very free-to-play friendly, in my opinion. She works perfectly fine at C0. She doesn't need constellations. She has a 3-star weapon choice that does very well in terms of damage, and she doesn't require a lot of 5-stars unit or C6 4-stars. Even though having a Zhongli seems to be relatively important in a lot of content, it's not by any means mandatory, and you can get away with other units that provide shields like Layla or Thoma, or even not playing any shielder and bring some other defensive utility. And last but not least is the fact that she is very good in overworld, both in combat and exploration. Regarding the exploration part, let me showcase you the team that I used to do some artifact routes with from time to time. So I used to have this team for my artifact routes, and I noticed that I could replace Rosaria with Arlecchino. And look at this, like we're currently here, right? And one of the issues with Arlecchino is that with her charge attack, it consumes a lot of stamina. Actually, it drains your stamina bar. So what you do if you have the best exploration units like Xianyun and Nielan, you swap to them. And by the time you go back to Arlecchino, as you can see, our stamina bar is already replenished. So we can go back to Arlecchino here, charge attack again. And let's see, in 2 rotation, let's see the distance we're gonna cover. So we do this, right? We go to Rielan. This is the artifact route, by the way, like a very old one that I used to do. But yeah, we're going back to Arlecchino now, and as you can see, that's only 2 rotation, and yeah, that's a lot of distance that was covered in just 2 rotations. So yeah, she's pretty good in exploration and in overworld, basically. And that was my overall thoughts on Arlecchino. I hope this video was helpful and informative. I recommend this unit. I think she's pretty good. In my case, it was a no-brainer because for all these years, my only Pyro damage dealer was Shangning, and she's not even an on-fielder. So yeah, recently I got Gaming, but yeah, in terms of 5-star, I didn't have like a tricky choice to make. But if you have Linne or Hu Tao or Yoimiya that are well built, the choice is going to be more difficult. All I can tell you is that I have 0 regrets so far. She's pretty fun to play. Actually, when I think about it now, my only regret, like my only small regret, is that when you play her, you tend not to use her ult because it's a DPS loss. And her ult animation is sick. Like, look at this. It's, bro, I would have loved if her ult did a little bit more than just damage. For example, I don't know, buff the team, or I don't know, do something to make us use it more. But yeah, that's my only little regret. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye!